hello everybody. This is
Welcome,
Wallace.
everyone. And this is
Hello,
Mike.
this is
Welcome to
Mike.
our very special ninth episode of Warped Wednesday. Wallace, is there a chaos god associated with number 9?
No,
No.
yeah, definitely not one of my favorites
Do you
either.
want to change your answers?
Final answer submitted.
Okay. Well, for those of us that actually know things about chaos, unlike Wallace, this is the special ninth Tzeentch episode. And I have completely not gone in character by keeping this beautiful corn background because, I mean, have you looked at this thing? It's absolutely gorgeous.
It's not an excuse.
We're not excused, exactly. Don't worry, I casted 9 spells on the way here, so we're good to go. Wallace, my friend, what are you going to do this week to celebrate Tzeentch?
I've got this list I threw together. I've talked about it a couple times. I got a lot of horrors and stuff. And I think it's pretty dang good, but what's not pretty dang good? Making all the blue
Inflation?
horrors and
Oh yeah.
I'm actually, so one thing I'm doing different than I've done historically is I'm actually color coding every squad
Oh, that's
to
smart.
also the horrors that split from them, because I find that when you bring a lot of big units of horrors, it gets kind of hard to keep track of the squads.
Yeah.
And I don't really mess with squad marks right now. I just haven't practiced with that. So
well, the
I'm just
trick is you
painting
have
them.
to individually name every single horror and put the
Oh, I
name
did.
in the base, and you just kind of know whether, oh, that's like Zenock the horror or whatever. He's in that.
Oh, yeah. No, I know all their names. It's just for
That's
my
fair.
opponents for visual clarity. I never
That's
make
fair.
that mistake.
That
They're
makes
like
sense.
babies to me.
Yeah. Or we can do like
Um,
flashcards. So we take a picture of every single horror you've painted, put it on a flashcard. We'll do flashcards like, what squad is this one in? What squad is this one in? And we make your opponent do it before the game too. If they
Yeah.
can't pass the test, they don't deserve to play you.
if I lose a game at Nova, I'm gonna let my opponent name my herald. So
That's fair.
yeah,
Well, I mean, you've been on hot streak attorneys lately. I don't know if you're going to lose the game, but we'll see.
we'll see. This is the strongest I felt in a while. So
Yeah, cool.
yeah.
Well, speaking of a while, Wallace, what have you been working on hobby-wise over the last week?
Well, that's what I was working on. How I was working on getting these horrors up to snuff. What about you?
Let's see. I've actually been really, really wanting. I've always wanted to have an army full of Mauler Fiends and Forge Fiends. And I've had 2 boxes. I've never really built them. Again, it's not like they haven't been good enough for me. I freaking ran Venom Crawlers back in the previous codex.
Ooh.
But I've simply been, I don't know, I've always kind of shied away from like big obvious targets like that. But I think Iron Warriors Forge Fiends are pretty good now. It's giving me the motivation to finally build them and paint them up. So I'm really excited.
Do you bring a warpsmith? Do you bring a warpsmith with them? That's my real question for Iron Warriors players. I want them to figure it out.
Everywhere I go. Every time I got drinking or something, it just flashes an ID card.
Yeah, got him in the seat next to you. I mean, honestly, the warpsmith works as an ID card because you have to be kind of a boomer to appreciate a warpsmith.
If you have one of those old metal ones, you're just allowed free drinks anywhere you go.
They just say, "All right, old man,
yeah,
I'll take you to the hospice afterwards."
Beat you with one of those old metal hell brutes in a sock.
I'm pretty sure all those old ones are made of like asbestos or lead.
Probably.
But yeah, so do you think you bring a warpsmith with Iron Warriors with Forge Fiends? I've not got a conclusive answer from anyone, and honestly, that's not really my play style. So I don't. No. Okay.
Well, here's the thing. There's some really good Warlord Traits, really good relics, but at the end of the day, I'd rather have more CP for stratagems, generally speaking, in Iron Warriors. And I think just a base Warpsmith isn't very good, with the exception of, so here's a little spice for all of you out there without morals, just like us. No, there's a relic, the Mechatendrils, which replace the Mechatendrils that are 4 additional attacks. The Mechatendrils relic does a mortal wound for every successful hit. The relic does not limit you to 4 extra attacks, so you can make his 5 base attacks, plus his 4 Mechatendril attacks, so you can have a total of 9 attacks made that are mortal wound every time they hit. With something like the Traitor's Mantle to reroll hits, and then exploding hits in the later turns, you can easily average like 10 mortal wounds. Now, I think this will be FAQ'd, so I haven't played it yet, because I don't want to kind of get attached to something and then have it taken away if it feels really good. But if that survives an FAQ, I think a Warpsmith is going to be damn near mandatory for both the utility he provides and kind of just walking up and just smacking like 3 Scarab Terminators out of existence.
That seems decent. I mean, it is still on a 6-inch move body. That's a limitation.
Yeah,
So that's something to think about.
that's
But
fair.
I have a little challenge for you today. I mean, we've been messing around with these hell forged artifacts every
Yeah.
episode, but
These
I
episodes
wanted
of
to
whose
spice it up.
Demonic's gift is it anyway? Well, so what are
Yeah,
you gonna spice up on me? Oh no.
I'm gonna spice it up a little bit.
Oh
We're
no.
gonna do psychic powers.
Psychic powers.
We're
Oh
gonna do psychic powers, and I'm not gonna even tell you what discipline they're from. Um,
okay.
so this is gonna be big hard. I think this is gonna be challenging, but if you get it, extra points to you, friend.
Wow. I'm excited. I mean, I haven't really, I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever read the flavor text on the psychic powers. I'm too busy trying to remember what the warp charge values are. So I'm
Yep.
excited for this, Walls. Go ahead. The warp gives the strongest soldiers its toughest battles. I'm ready.
Reaching with their mind into the darkest depths of the void, the Psyker
The
draws forth.
Treason of Tzeentch.
Brother, you need to let me finish because you're wrong.
No.
It's
Really
void
cool, right,
slivers. It's void slivers
Oh, come on.
from the Malfic discipline. You needed to wait literally like one sentence, and I say the word slivers, and then you could have gotten it. Maybe you would have better chance at least.
Well,
That was
redo. Give me another one.
that was real.
Give me another one from Bellacor's discipline, actually.
Well, that's it. Okay. Process of elimination now means you're just going to get it
Yeah.
if I just list off one.
If I get 5 guesses, I'll get it eventually.
A black flume envelops the Psyker's allies.
Hold up. Wreathed in Shades.
No,
I
actually,
was going to take Numbral Curse.
I just goobered you. It's Shrouded Step. I just
There's no way
intentionally
that's
did-
Shrouded Step.
It is. Yes,
Hold
it
up,
says
there's
that,
no
and then
way.
it says the full quote is. I just wanted to get you because you were gamering me. The full quote is: "A black flume envelops the Psyker's allies. It flows across the battlefield before coalescing into a roiling darkness from which they emerge."
Well, can we imagine just how screwed up that is for the mortal followers, like the legionaries that join Bellacor's army and get turned into a cloud of smoke and float across the battlefield? Like, you imagine the first time that happened to them. I guess by like the 5th battle, they kind of get the concept. But the first time Bellacor kind of just looks at them and turns them into smoke, they're like, do they turn instantly into smoke, or do they kind of like evaporate upwards until they?
I think it's like an Axe body spray commercial. You know, like they just emerge from the smoke. You know, it's like
yeah, exactly.
Bellacor brand body spray. And you know, like all the cultists are clamoring to him, all the demons are clamoring to him, you know, because they're the hotness, you know, they got the spray on.
Yeah.
Bellacor brand. I like that.
Okay. Well, so I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna give you a Warlord trait from the Demon's Codex.
All right. Do I get to know anything about the Warlord trait?
You get to know that's from the Demon's Codex. Okay, don't get greedy.
Okay, it's a lore master of Tzeentch.
Are you kidding? Guys, we did not plan this out ahead of time, I promise.
There's no way. There's just no way you knew.
No, of course it's not.
No, it's not.
Really cool if it was, though.
The chances of that are just incredibly slim. Well,
I mean, there's only like 24 Warlord traits, right?
Well, I picked a Tzeentch one because I figured it's the Tzeentch episode, even though you got a corn background. So
it do be like that. Okay, well, so we're gonna go deep in the weeds here. Wow. Okay, I'll give you one hint. This Warlord trait, the actual in-game effect, is probably the worst thing I've ever seen printed.
Oh, so it's a corn one.
I should have said that. I've given too much away.
You've given too much away. Is it the smash attack one where they take like D3 mortal wounds instead of swinging?
Yes,
but it's like one hit.
Blow, but that's too. Let's read Devastating Blow.
Yeah.
The Blood God has granted this demon the strength to fell even the greatest enemies with a single almighty devastating blow. And the effect is you replace literally all of your attacks with a single hit roll that, if it hits, it's D3 mortal wounds. I love the way they printed this Warlord trait, and they're like, you know what? If you replace all of your attacks with D3 mortal wounds, that's probably overpowered. Okay, that's a little too good, buddy. You still have to roll the hit roll. We're not handing out free mortal wounds over here.
You know how you fix that?
How?
In my opinion, you just, if you want to keep it, because it's already a weird trait,
you don't.
You make it so that it replaces, instead of D3 mortal wounds, it does mortal wounds equal to their strength characteristic.
That's pretty cool. Well,
that would be cool.
Here's a cool Warlord trait, or stratagem or something.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of making all of your corn characters attacks, you roll a d6. On a 4-up, you do flat 8 mortal wounds. Tell me that's not spicy, because it's kind of garbage, but it's kind of amazing.
So here's a better one. Start
Okay.
of the game, you roll a single dice. On a roll of a 6, you get to change factions. Like you can just be done. You can switch armies.
That's fair. That'd be really cool. Tzeentch Warlord Trait. You have to switch armies with your opponent.
Yeah, they have to play Tzeentch demons. So
Yeah.
you can't gamers you a little bit. You can't just make a bad list because
No, of course
you probably
Yeah.
you won't always roll the 6.
Yeah.
But when you roll that 6,
Oh yeah.
now you'll know what your army does. They probably won't. They'll ask, how does this play? And
Yeah.
you have no legal obligation to explain it to them in this theoretical
No.
scenario.
No.
So
Well,
you give them the
unfortunately,
codex and you say, good luck.
well, unfortunately, if your opponent has gone to warphammer.com and read all these amazing guides on how to play chaos, they're actually being expert at playing that faction, and they're probably going to beat you because they've learned from the very best, Wallace and Mike. Let's go ahead and try one more time with an actual warlord trait and see if you can avoid guessing it.
Okay.
This demon is blessed with an iron grip in the mortal world. It is able to sustain its minions with the power of the warp.
Demon Spark?
Close. It's literally right next to it. But no, it's Warp Tether, which is, again, a super, super cool description. Even a pretty cool name. The effect is you reroll failed morale tests for friendly Tzeentch demon units within 9 inches of your warlord. Yeah.
If you brought a bunch of like min squads of horrors, like early on in 9th edition,
yeah,
just it would be like you're fishing for ones kind of.
Yeah.
Because you're allowed to roll your morale check even if you didn't lose enough to fail it too.
Well, or what if you were playing a previous edition where you had to make a leadership check to fall back? That'd be really effective.
That's true.
Yeah. Fortunately, we're living here in 9th edition still, and this is the kind of garbage that's printed in the current Demons Codex. I'm so freaking hyped for the next one. I can't wait to get my hands on that and actually read it, because it's gonna be really exciting. Well, let's take it straight away to today's. Let me try again. I swear I can speak. Well, let's get straight away to today's main subject, the question of drumroll. Is Abaddon the Despoiler? Is he broken or not?
When you say broken, you mean like, does he need to be fixed?
Well, this is just something people say on like sports talk shows and radio.
Okay.
I have no freaking clue. I don't care really. I think it's an inane question that doesn't deserve a serious answer, and it's only fit for like Reddit board discussion. But I have like
a whole wall of answers here, and they're all like got strings going to other points on the board with other codexes, and it's like got circles on Abaddon, and he's on a board with a bunch of other characters. So, okay, does he need any changes? No. Is he broken? No.
So here's the issue with this, Wallace, is that you and I, kind of just being experienced Demons players that play the game quite often, we're probably going to have takes that are a little bit too grounded to really make for great drama. So you know what? I'm going to sit here today. I'm going to take the position that Abaddon is completely busted. The game is broken. Okay. I'm going to try to defend that, and we'll do a little talking heads thing. How does that sound?
I'll trade you if you want.
No. Well, Abaddon is...
That would be Tzeentch of me, right? It's a treason.
It would be. But you can argue if the Lord of Change is broken. Wallace, I think Abaddon is the most busted in the history of 40K. The most busted data sheet to ever be printed. And Games Workshop should be frankly ashamed for putting Abaddon's data sheet out into the world. How do they think we can even play the game after Abaddon's printed? I mean, 300 points. He should be a minimum 1,500 points. In fact, I think he should be 2,000 points, frankly, because he's an army entirely into himself, so he should cost like an entire army. Wallace, do you have a single counterpoint you can make to this brilliant point?
You're honestly really convincing me, Mike, but I gotta say, one thing that's really important with any kind of like codex balancing is identifying the things that you want to be strong. I think it's okay if certain units in the game are undercosted or more powerful than other units, even if they're within the same codex. Internal balance doesn't mean that all things are equal, nor is all things being equal good for the identity of your faction. What I think Abaddon does is he gives a lot of identity to his faction. And in particular, he assists Black Legion players with playing a thematic list the way that they envision both in the lore and on the tabletop. So I like that he's this key centerpiece, and this is a design takeover that they've actually really pulled, in my opinion, from Age of Sigmar, because we're seeing it more and more with a lot of these more recent releases, and it's something they've been experimenting with in Age of Sigmar for a while, which is identifying a few key units that they want to be the centerpiece of somebody's army, making those units intentionally quite strong, but making them somewhat ubiquitous. So if Abaddon were locked just to Black Legion, I would think he needed to be fixed because it would cause a lot of internal balance issues that were not satisfying. You would want to play the Chaos Space Marines Codex, but you would feel hamstrung unless you were, teching into either Black Legion or like Word Bearers, which doesn't really need his rerolls. So that wouldn't be a very feels good moment for the other players, because they wouldn't have.
Abaddon doesn't feel good because he's so broken. Keep going.
But the rest of the codex really isn't. I don't think there's a lot in the Chaos Space Marine book that is just purely in of itself broken. It's a chaos book. There's a lot of things that become strong as you mix different stratagems on them and rules interactions, but those base data sheets themselves are not super impressive. It's really what you do.
Except for Abaddon, his data sheet is way too impressive at 300 points. Completely busted.
But why is it busted?
Well, I just kind of say things.
You're just heckling me. So,
so here's the thing, right? We can't have a debate because you're making excellent points that I completely agree on, which making a debate back and forth really difficult.
I just think Abaddon's good in a way that is satisfying for players. Yeah. And yeah, there's going to be some people that are upset that, Abaddon is good, but their faction isn't. And they might list like Night Lords. They're like, I hate that I can't play Night Lords without Abaddon in my list. And the thing is, I don't even think that's true. I think there's alternatives.
It's literally completely untrue. And in fact, I think kind of leaning on a lot of infantry and going for "We Have Come For You" plays is probably the strongest way to play Night Lords. Well, the strongest way to play Night Lords is just bring Abaddon 2,000 points, let him solo their entire army, and just call it Night Lords army.
Just leave the rest in summoning points and maybe never use them. Exactly. But I like it when they push these centerpiece models a little bit. So
I think part of the reason is every time GW tries to make a creative rule or tries to make like a unit actually powerful, I think people kind of have an initial reaction that's very negative just because they don't really know what a good large centerpiece unit looks like. Like, for example, Mortarion was a perfect example of this kind of Abaddon phenomenon. When he came out, everyone was like, wow, he has like way too many rules and way too many defensive buffs. He hits way too hard, just way too good. But that's just because basically every single Lord of War has just been garbage for so long, we kind of forget what a decent one looks like. In fact, Mortarion was actually amazingly balanced. I have to give GW a ton of credit, frankly, there. I'm not giving him a ton of credit for other balance decisions, but Mortarion specifically actually makes for really interesting gameplay. And he really has like a wide variety of matchups where he does well in, some he doesn't do. He has like a thoughtful decision for a Death Guard player to make, which is when everyone at the time was talking about like he's either busted or garbage. I mean, turned out to be one of the most balanced units in 9th edition overall.
I mean, think about it like this. The Silent King is very clearly a pushed data sheet. But
yeah, you can say that again. He's the Abaddon of Necrons.
He's the Abaddon of Necrons. But the thing is, he operates and facilitates lists in a similar way that Abaddon does, which is if you're playing with the Silent King, you want to build a little bit around him. Like, yeah, you can bring him in any list and he'll be good in any list, but he really shines when you have pieces that support that game plan. And what Abaddon does very well is he gets to the midfield of the table and he kind of bullies people. He like forces them off objectives or scares them with heroic interventions or threatens to countercharge them if they commit their pieces too early. And that can be a really difficult thing to deal with, especially for certain armies that don't have multi-phase damage. In a similar way that Gazkul is, in a similar way that the Silent King is, to a lesser degree, even Bahara is kind of...
Well, I mean, but counterpoint, though, is it not just a bad list if you haven't brought multi-phase damage? I mean, these things have been in the game now for years at this point.
Sure.
You can't show up like to a game and see a phase capped model and just throw your hands up and be like, wow, I guess I lose, you know?
Yeah,
You're getting some counterplay. It may be like mobility and playing around them, or damage that can get through it. But there's a lot of armies that have very, very well tuned multi-phase damage. I think we're far past the point in 9th edition where you kind of throw your hands up and just be like, wow, it's so unfair that a multi-phase capped model. I guess I'm just going to lose now. I'm a great player. I've got a great list. I just happen to run into this bullshit, you know?
and even the armies that are designed around like one phase, kind of like Tau is really heavily designed around shooting, they have access to relics and stuff where if your meta is really filled with these wound cap characters, you can just ignore it. I mean, Tyranids have that really as well. Like you can play an all melee monster mash Tyranid list and then just take the Reapers and you ignore it.
Well,
for Night Lords players,
things like your Codex. Oh, I mean, Night Lords. Again,
I just wanted to give an example real quick. Night Lords players have a relic that does damage in the movement phase and the charge phase, I believe. And it's mortal wounds.
D3 mortal wounds, which I think is really fantastic.
Yeah, and and you put that on a demon prince, and that's a really good anti-Abaddon piece. And they also have claws that ignore.
Or went out quickly, or you put on Jump Lord. Is it too soon? Is it too soon to say that?
It is too soon. I hope we get a new sculpt. I really do. And then they just kind of like put a data sheet in a future supplement or something.
Yeah, just so we can use the old sculpts. Because there's so many amazing conversions there now. It's unfortunate. Okay.
And Night Lord has two answers too, because they also have claws that ignore wound caps. So
Night Lords are kind of low-key, really, really good. And I'm very okay with people continuing to sleep on them. I don't want to see the army across the table. There's a few ways you just make a mistake against it. It just ends the game against you. So I'm looking forward to seeing them more as people kind of gradually wake up to the idea that Night Lords are not only playable, but actually very, very well tuned. So I guess part of the discussion ultimately comes down to, if you run into one of these mechanics that exists in the game, like a phase cap, or characters that stand back up or something, or I don't know, like aircraft or something, and you're sitting there and you're just saying, wow, this is some bullshit, this is some cheese, I can't believe GW published this. I think that's more an indictment of your list or your play skill isn't as good as you think it is. It's okay to get frustrated with models like that. At the end of the day, it's not a mystery. You know they're out there. So if you're showing up with a list that literally can't handle them, I mean, that's on you as much as is the balance. Because I guarantee your Codex has some options. And if you're a guard player, don't come in here and be like, well, does my Codex have? First of all, I don't know. Second of all, I'm sorry. You really should have had a new Codex by now. The game's not really balanced for 8th edition books at this point, let's be honest. But like every single 9th edition book has some sort of answer. Even Tau, for example, you send in, there's a way to explode and just auto-explode battle suits and just plink some more of the wounds away or something.
I don't think Guard need help against Chaos either, because you've got, the Relic of Lost Cadia that just absolutely destroys us. So, I don't think he needs to be fixed. If Chaos Space Marines start overperforming, he is one of the dials you could adjust. But it's the same thing. Like Gilliman is, that's good.
He'll soak some nerfs for us. The first thing people do is nerf Abaddon. Okay, I literally I'm not even running him in over half my list at this point. Take him, make him 350. We all move on, call it a day. Although it would be really unfair at 350, because I mean, you look at somebody, I just say like Morven Val at 380 or 280 is just as untargetable, but also shoots really good damage down range, where you can just auto 6, on this missile launcher. If they have good range, it's a whole different ball game, but that's a separate discussion.
And I think Gilliman, who got a points reduction to 300 as well, he's similar in terms of quality for force amplification, and he's not as scary individually in terms of damage output. His presence on objectives. He still needs his buddies, but he's not going to break the meta. I don't think that Abaddon, who's essentially, in my opinion, just souped up Gilliman, I don't think he's going to break the meta, but I do think he's quite strong. You'll see him a lot of places. I, for one, like my demons list is getting deadlifted by Abaddon being in it, because I think horrors are like one of the perfect units for protecting him. And I mean, I built an entire army around him so he can shine.
Yeah. Well, but counterpoint, some of it too is it's very matchup dependent.
Right. That's the thing.
You play an army like Thousand Suns, and suddenly you're terrified of using Abaddon, because they send Armon on a little joyride. He gets an angle, Tzeentch's Firestorm, flat 3, boom, does it again. By the time you get in, you have one phase left, and they just shoot you or melee you. It's really, especially if you're not playing on great terrain, it's really kind of look for some tech options.
Well, you can Corn deny it on a 4+, but
still they have Gaze of Hate and also add D3 on.
Sure.
Like, there's always counterplay.
Yeah.
I think part of it too is that I think there's actually, speaking of cast base brains, we actually have some pretty good anti-Abaddon tech. Emperor's Children have a relic, which is cute. It's very meta dependent. It's
the Sonic one.
Yeah, the fatal sonancy, which I think is first of all really cool. I think Sonic stuff is the best part of Emperor's Children, just from a rule of cool perspective. But I think it's a relic. You basically at the end of the moving phase, you just do roll 6 dice, every 4 ups a mortal wound. Very likely, just picking up 3 wounds off someone right there. I also think it's a great relic in general. I just wish we played in a kind of a Nachman world where I would definitely take it. It's still tough to justify Nephilim. The long story short is, yeah, I think the fact that Abaddon isn't even an auto take in CSM, people talk about it like he's an auto take. The Silent King, now that's an auto take. You literally, if your Necron's list does not include him, it's a suboptimal list. There's
there's been lists that have been doing well that are just 3 Satan now as well.
That's actually
because
very fair.
Because they had enough of a point reduction that 3 Satan can kind of do a similar thing to the Silent King. But your point stands of like he's definitely a tournament staple, right?
Yeah.
I think Abaddon is going to be less prevalent or omniprevalent than the Silent King is, at least in the best builds. And that's a good place. Like, we want the despoiler to be good. Come on.
What's wrong with Abaddon being good?
He's our iconic guy. We like our iconic guy running around. If you want to make your own, make your own iconic guy, give him a warlord trait and a relic, and then you can kind of like, say this is Blip Bloop from the Red Crusades.
The Blip Bloop from the Blip Bloop Crusade.
And he's got his own special rules because he's really strong, and that's fine. You can do that still. You do that. That's good. But in a competitive environment, which is kind of where everything is balanced around, I don't think Abaddon's breaking anything. And honestly, he's just helping a lot of players, get accustomed to the codex because he's just got that raw. That raw.
He's got the beef.
He's got the beef.
One last point I want to make. In this Nephilim world, so much of a faction strength comes from its secondaries. Now, let's just be frank. Chaos Space Marine secondaries, a few good things there. It's really not what you want to see. They're definitely in the lower, probably I'd say third of codexes when it comes to secondary strength. Which means if they're going to be balanced and have a chance against others, they kind of have to outplay them in the killing game, in the board control game. Because if Chaos Space Marines are kind of balanced in a vacuum against another army, they're probably going to be just very underpowered competitively because their faction secondaries are so bad. And if you're saying like, Mike, that's a bit of a, silly logic, you shouldn't have faction secondaries impact the game that much. I agree completely. I'm really not thrilled with what they did in terms of so much of balance being tied to rotating secondaries, but it is what it is. It's like, it's the world we play in. And let Chaos Space Marines have good things.
Yeah, again, you got Long War, you got Rise to Glory, which Long War's 3 points sometimes, so it's probably netting you like 9.
It's a 9-point secondary.
If you're really good, you can get like 11 or 12. But that's fine. So Long War is fine. Rise to Glory is actually pretty good. I've recently sold myself on it. Obviously, you have to be in the right matchups for it. There's a couple of factions.
Abaddon and a Disco, you're going to score probably like 10 plus in every matchup. It makes sense to take it
and get some extra CP on top of that.
Get some extra CP, always useful.
But again, I don't think Abaddon breaks anything. I do think Chaos Space Marines are held back more than anything by their faction secondaries, but we'll see how it all shakes out in the end. Maybe they are good enough at just tabling people that they'll be able to work their way up into the higher win percentages. I'm still confident they will. We just have to see.
I'm very optimistic about them overall. I'm very optimistic. That's part of why last week on the episode we kind of ranked Chaos factions. I still put Thousand Suns a tiny bit ahead of Chaos Space Marines in terms of the best Chaos army, just because the impact of the secondaries has been so big in the games I've played. I love the Thousand Suns secondaries. But at the end of the day, right, it's just a small part of the overall picture. I feel like the game's in a really good spot overall. Pick a list, pick an army, play it well, and you're going to do okay. You may not do as well as a Sisters player who doesn't have to leave their side of the field to score 45 on secondaries, but hey, we can't all play Imperial armies. Let's have some fun. Let's do what we can. Well, do you have any closing thoughts on Abaddon or Chaos Space Marines overall?
just kind of your last point there. If you're ever
Yeah,
playing a game and you don't feel like your faction has an easy way to score well and your opponent does, your game plan changes from I'm trying to score points on my faction. Don't worry about trying to squeeze that last 3 points out of the long war or whatever. Your game plan is no longer dependent on trying to
yeah,
squeeze that few extra points out of hard to do secondaries. It actually becomes trying to deny theirs. And for some people, that's easier than others. Like there's certain secondaries you
yeah.
can't interact with, like some of what Sisters in the Necron have, but there's other ones you can. So when you're in that situation, do your best to deny them points, either on the primary, on the
Yeah.
secondary. That becomes your game plan. That becomes your focus. Try to bring that score lower because they
That,
have more guaranteed points than you.
that's a fantastic point, Walls. I'd like to bring up one final point. If you're in a game where there's clearly a secondary differential and you're on the back foot, just freaking kill them. I mean, here's the thing. Playing against Necrons, I found the best way to beat them is don't leave enough of them alive turn 4 and turn 5 to keep doing their bullcrap. Literally just try to table them and things will work out on the scoreboard. And I know that's not very applicable advice in every matchup, but seriously, if you're unsure what to do, point your heaviest hitters at their most valuable targets, press go, and see what happens. Because I guarantee it's better than sitting there and just kind of slowly losing over 5 turns on the scoreboard.
Right. Do what GW wants you to do, which is to take the Silent King and take your Abaddon action figure and smash them together. Say, ah, and smash your action figures together. Obviously, don't smash your opponent's model without asking them first.
So, pro tip is someone that used to own a Silent King. Really loved playing Necrons. I just sold them to make more space. I sold them for more demons. Don't worry, I was not bandwagoning. The Silent King is actually attached kind of spindly on the bottom. He's got one attachment to the little it's kind of like this little rotating electrical wires.
Yep.
Where it comes to worse, you can always just snap those, take the model off the table. With a well-placed water ball or something. You don't have to face the Silent King. Yeah. Just to clarify for anyone that doesn't get the joke, please don't actually do that. We do not support violence against miniatures here, no matter how overpowered they may be. It's only a matter of time before they come for our Abaddons.
I guess my last thing I'll say before we leave today, Mike, is I did model my Abaddon so that his sword hand is holding up a horror. And it looks like he's using it like a little shield. And that's exactly what he will be doing on the tabletop for me until I get a new Demons Codex.
Very excited. Can't wait to see that horror list in action. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today on our 9th Tzeentch episode of Warped Wednesday. Can't wait to see you all next week.
Bye.